The Young and the Restless spoilers Wednesday, full October 16th. In recent days, Sharon Newman had found herself spiraling into emotional turmoil. The death of Heather loomed large over her life, casting a shadow she couldn't shake. The fear and guilt gnawed at her, keeping her awake at night and distorting her sense of reality. Desperate for comfort, for a way to escape the suffocating burden of Heather's murder, Sharon turned to the one person who had always been a constant in her life, Nick Newman. Nick had been her first love, her steady anchor in a world that often felt chaotic. Though their relationship had ended years ago, Sharon knew that Nick still cared for her. He had always been there for her during her most trying times, and now, Sharon needed him more than ever. In her mind, rekindling their connection would help her forget the horror of Heather's death. It would help her heal, help her feel alive again. But the reality was much more complicated than Sharon wanted to admit. Nick, on the other hand, was currently in a relationship with Phyllis Summers, though things between them had been rocky for some time. Their connection, once fiery and passionate, now seemed to fizzle under the weight of unresolved issues. It was clear to anyone paying attention that Nick and Phyllis were headed toward a breakup. The emotional distance between them was palpable, and both of them seemed to be avoiding the inevitable end of their relationship. Sharon saw this as an opportunity. Nick, who had always been a source of comfort and security, was once again within her reach. She believed that if she could reconnect with Nick, she might finally escape the fear that had been gripping her since Heather's death. The pull towards Nick wasn't just about love, it was about survival. Sharon needed someone to lean on, someone to help her escape the storm that raged within her mind. Yet, as much as she wanted to share her fears about Heather's death, Sharon couldn't bring herself to trust anyone with that dark secret. The weight of it was too heavy, and even Nick, the man she trusted more than anyone, couldn't be burdened with the truth. As Sharon wrestled with her emotions, the tension between Daniel Romalotti and Detective Chance Chancellor continued to escalate. Daniel had been in agony ever since he was accused of Heather's murder. The accusation, absurd as it was, had torn his life apart. He hadn't just lost his wife, he was now being painted as her killer. The irony wasn't lost on him. How could anyone believe he would ever harm Heather, the woman who had been his partner and the mother of his daughter, Lucy? Chance, unfortunately, wasn't so easily convinced of Daniel's innocence. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, Chance seemed fixated on Daniel as the prime suspect. His once sharp instincts as a detective had dulled, and now he was acting more out of frustration than logic. The investigation had stalled, and Chance, growing increasingly impatient, had begun to consider the possibility of arresting Daniel just to close the case. It was as if Chance had lost the ability to see the situation clearly, blinded by his own need for a resolution. And the mounting pressure from all sides. His approach had become alarmingly subjective, relying more on assumptions than facts. Daniel, of course, was furious. He had already lost so much: his wife, his peace of mind, his sense of normalcy. Now, he was being branded as a murderer without a shred of credible proof. The constant accusations and Chance's unrelenting pressure made it feel like he was fighting a losing battle. Every conversation with Chance became more heated, more confrontational, as Daniel struggled to defend himself against an investigation that seemed determined to pin the blame on him, no matter the lack of evidence. It wasn't just Daniel who was growing frustrated with Chance's tactics. Those close to him began to question whether Chance was still capable of handling the case objectively. His impulsive decisions, coupled with his failure to focus on other leads, painted a picture of a detective who had lost his edge. Was it possible that Chance had been led astray, allowing his emotions to cloud his judgment? The once respected detective now appeared inept, a man who had abandoned the very instincts that had once made him one of the most capable officers in Genoa City. Meanwhile, amidst the chaos surrounding Heather's death, another relationship was quietly blossoming, one that was facing its own set of challenges. Lucy Romalotti and Faith Newman, despite being surrounded by turmoil and opposition from the adults in their lives, had grown closer. Their bond, forged through shared pain and a deep understanding of each other's struggles, had become a source of comfort for both girls. While their families disapproved, Lucy and Faith found solace in each other, always sharing their heartaches and offering support when no one else seemed to understand.
The relationship between Lucy and Faith had become a point of contention among those around them. Sharon, dealing with her own emotional wreckage, wasn't in a position to offer support or guidance to Faith. Instead, she focused on her own desires, using her complicated feelings for Nick to fill the void left by Heather's death. And while Sharon sought out Nick as a way to escape her inner turmoil, she remained oblivious to the growing connection between Faith and Lucy. For Faith and Lucy, their relationship was a safe haven in a world filled with uncertainty and judgment. No matter how much their families tried to pull them apart, the girls remained steadfast, determined to be there for each other. They shared the burdens of their lives, the grief, the confusion, the fear that came with growing up in such a chaotic environment. In each other, they found the understanding that the adults in their lives seemed incapable of providing. As days turned into weeks, the tension in Genoa City continued to build. Sharon, now more desperate than ever to reconnect with Nick, found herself walking a dangerous path. She was using her emotions to try to recapture something that had long since faded. Nick, though still concerned for Sharon, was grappling with his own emotional turmoil, torn between his failing relationship with Phyllis and the undeniable pull he felt toward Sharon. Meanwhile, Daniel was reaching a breaking point. With Chance bearing down on him, seemingly intent on seeing him behind bars, Daniel knew he needed to find a way to clear his name. The truth about Heather's death was still out there, hidden beneath layers of deception and manipulation. But who could be trusted to uncover it? And what would happen when the real killer finally came to light? As the web of relationships in Genoa City grew more tangled, one thing was clear. The answers to these questions would not come easily. Sharon's desire for comfort, Chance's faltering abilities as a detective, and the blossoming connection between Lucy and Faith were all pieces of a much larger puzzle, a puzzle that, once completed, would reveal the dark truth behind Heather's death and the consequences that followed. Still, there's no concrete evidence tying them to the crime. And that's exactly how Daisy and Sheila operate, leaving just enough doubt, just enough plausible deniability to keep themselves free from suspicion while ensuring their enemies are destroyed. Chance, now faced with the daunting task of unraveling this complex web, must tread carefully. The stakes have never been higher, and the real killers remain at large, manipulating events with terrifying precision. If he's to uncover the truth, he'll need to dig deeper, look beyond the obvious, and recognize that he's been dancing to Daisy and Sheila's tune all along. But will Chance be able to expose the true masterminds before it's too late? Or will Daisy and Sheila, as they've done so many times before, slip away unscathed?